Thanks everyone for coming. I will ask, as I'm such an organizer, that you sign in.
My name is Michael Higgins Jr., and I'm a junior organizer at Families United for Racial and Economic Equality, also known as FURREE. We're in Gowanus, Brooklyn, where thousands of residents live in public housing.
This is a flood zone. This is a Zone 1 flood zone, which basically means that if there's a flood, all this would be, inundated, right? And so the flood zone goes from here down to about 3rd Avenue, and from here over to Bond Street. In Gowanus, most public housing is built on former factory sites and near water, which means that the land that this is built on is not only very toxic, but prone to flooding. Gowanus is home to 4,500 public housing residents who live in 3 different developments: Wyckoff Gardens, Warren Street houses, and here at Gowanus houses.
My name is Beverly Corbin, and I live in Wyckoff Gardens, which is these white buildings. During Sandy, Gowanus had 5 buildings taken out by Sandy. I took hot meals to the building on my scooter, where people would grab the meals and run up the stairs with them. I carry water on the front of my scooter to buildings so people could carry water, medical supplies upstairs. Everybody was involved in trying to make these people feel safe as possible. Michael was one of the FURREE youth. FURREE had an organization where they worked with youth in the community to help uplift them and build them. And Michael came out of that program to become our community organizer and working with Turning the Tides.
Turning the Tide is an effort with Fifth Avenue Committee along with partners Red Hook Initiative, Families United for Racial Economic Equality, Southwest Brooklyn Industrial Development Corporation, and NYCHA to work with public housing residents in the 5 NYCHA developments in Red Hook and Gowanus, Red Hook East and West, Gowanus, Wyckoff, and Warren Street houses, to look at what are the ways that we can ensure that low-income folks actually influence and inform policy as it relates to the climate movement and climate justice. Environmental justice issues are when environmental issues exist in communities that are disproportionately impacting lower income folks of color. In general, low and moderate income folks are disproportionately impacted by climate change. A lot of that has to do with historic land use patterns and the fact that we have often located lower income housing along waterfronts.
Gowanus houses.
It's right next to a canal. When the canal flooded, 5 of the buildings had their basements flooded underwater. How do we make public housing more climate resilient so that if something happens again, people not only have emergency preparedness plans so that people know what to do, but also making the building stronger to withstand future storms that might be as strong or stronger than Sandy was.
A lot of environmental justice issues have to do with whether or not communities are prepared for climate change and whether or not there's equal preparation across various races and socioeconomic classes. And the answer is there's absolutely not equal preparation. And certain communities are more vulnerable than others.
People didn't have money for baby formula that was spoiling, for water because Gowanus runs on the same electrical water tank. People didn't have money for medicine that was spoiling because there was no refrigeration. There was no elevator service for people who were physically disabled to even come downstairs and get the food or the water or the milk or the medicine that we had.
The question is, what infrastructure is being created to make sure that the people who live here aren't just hit each time there's a heavy rain?
Significant investments will have to be made so that seniors and folks that are disabled aren't at risk during events, whether it's wet weather events, whether it's, honestly, the heat island effect is actually the highest risk that low-income folks face. And unfortunately, a lot of the community centers, which had previously been places where people could go as a cooling center, a lot of them have closed over the years.
Turning the Tide worked through participatory budgeting to actually win money to open
The former Gowanus Community Center.
We won $350,000 to make the repairs, but we still do not have enough money to put programming in there.
One of the things that Turning the Tide is responding to is the fact that Red Hook and Gowanus and the City of New York have been the subject of more than 4 dozen planning efforts post-Sandy, and most of them aren't informed by the needs of low-income residents. And so we really wanted to have the needs of low-income public housing residents be front and center.
This is one of the new recycling bins that you'll find at developments across the city.
NYCHA, the New York City Housing Authority, is home to almost 500,000 people, and despite it having hundreds of thousands of residents, it only just started doing recycling because of the engagement of people on the ground and communities asking for it. We're working towards a world where not only is public housing a safe, clean environment to live in, but it's also climate resilient and can withstand the future effects of climate change.